welcome to U.S. Cricket Daily, the world's first podcast dedicated to Major League Cricket. I'm Della, Penna, and with me is Aaman Patel.
Hey Peter, and like we always are, we're here to bring you the latest from the cricket world right here in the USA with our daily update.
Coming up, we'll bring you up to date on the latest match between San Francisco Unicorns and Texas Super Kings, which turned out to be a pretty lopsided 7-wicket win for Texas Super Kings in spite of some of the injuries they've had to hit their squad, as they finally get on the board with their first win of MLC 2024. They were brilliant with the bat and even better with the ball. And you can listen to our interview with LA Knight Riders and Australia wicketkeeper Alex Carey from our previous episode at US Cricket Daily. And tomorrow, don't miss an interview with the one and only Piers Morgan, who at the moment is enjoying himself at Lord's as England is running rampant over the West Indies with Gus Atkinson taking a 7-wicket haul on debut. And Piers Morgan is at Lord's. He's going to be there for the first few days enjoying cricket there, but before he went to Lord's, he took some time out to sit down with us and do an interview, and there's plenty of it in there that you'll be sure to entertain a lot of you listeners out there, so make sure to stay tuned for that. We have a very special guest. Please welcome the one and only Piers Morgan.
Brett Lee said, "You reckon you could do any better, mate?" I went, "Yeah, I do actually." He smashed the ball lightning speed, and it was straight into my wrist, and I thought he'd broken it. But I thought I can't show any pain, so I had to just say, "Go on." A third one, he broke my rib. Clean fracture. He hit me 4 times in 6 balls, broke my rib, and then hit the broken rib. All the Brits around me were like, "You
Biden's looking like he's not aware of most things these days. If Joe Biden was wandering out of his crease and didn't really know where he was going, do you think Trump would man-cat him?
I think Trump would man-cat him in a heartbeat, yeah. I don't think he'd remember even if you gave him a warning. I could not imagine Joe Biden play cricket right now. I mean, he can barely stand on his own 2 feet. It's like sexy baseball. If you like baseball, but you want to see a sexier version and test your brain power more, come and try T20 cricket.
And a reminder that US Cricket Daily is brought to you in association with Clyde Hill Publishing and its book imprints, Clyde Hill and Pulley Press, which are dedicated to founders, innovators, thinkers, and tinkerers everywhere. Pre-order our book on the rise of Major League Cricket in America at ClydeHillPublishing.com.
And Peter, you can also follow US Cricket Daily on Instagram, X, and TikTok. You can watch all our episodes on YouTube. Just search US Cricket Daily. Hit subscribe, follow us, and rate us on Apple and Spotify. If you want to get in touch, you can also email us at hello@uscricketdaily.com.
Well, Aaman, it was a peculiar match in many ways because after the power play, the Unicorns were cruising. They were running away off to a fantastic start, 74 for 3, and there were all these projections. Will they get to 200? How far past 200 will they go? And I'm blaming you for this one, Aaman, because you got into the commentary box, and suddenly wickets started falling left, right, and center. And by the time your spell was done in the commentary box, it was 81 for 6.
Yeah, Peter, you wouldn't be the only one who blamed me on the day. Our Z, she was there at the ground, and she works with the San Francisco Unicorns, and she was like, "Man, this is all on you." But 5 wickets fell from overs 5 through 8, which was nuts. But as you mentioned, to start the game off, you thought, "Oh man, this is the Unicorns' comeback game." You saw the 6 and the 4, and you're like, "Well, there you go, things are gonna happen." And then Finn Allen gets out on really what ended up being a low full toss. He just closed the face too early. But even at that point, you're saying, all right, Matthew Shore's here. The runs are going to flow. They're going to have to score. They're going to find ways to score. And then the wickets just kept coming in weird fashions too, Peter. I don't think it was a case of the surface starting to show wear and tear or that the bowlers were doing anything incredible. I mean, you saw Matt Short get out to third man. It was just kind of a little bit wider and just chipped it over to him. Even DJ Bravo's wickets, took pace off and maybe a little bit slower and then quickened it up. But nothing crazy that was just so drastically different that you felt, man, this ball is unplayable.
I disagree. I think they must have been putting some magic spell on the cricket ball because, they never change it. And I think something mysterious must have happened because we saw the way that Jake Fraser McGurk got out. We saw the way that I take it back. We saw the way that Finn Allen got out. Okay, we saw the way that Corey Anderson got out. 2 full tosses that probably should have gone for 6. And instead, they wound up being wicket-taking balls because Finn Allen somehow got a leading edge on a full toss that was about thigh height. Should have gone over the leg side for 6. Instead, it finds Faf du Plessis' hands. And then later on, Corey Anderson gets a full toss from Mohammad Mohsin. And, I got to give you credit. There are a lot of ways that you could describe what happened on that delivery, and what happened there. He clearly was premeditating reverse sweep, and as bad as the play in the miss was on the shot, perhaps even the bigger error by Corey Anderson was going to review it. That was purely an ego review. What was he thinking? I think he was just filled with embarrassment there, and he decided, oh God, I can't believe I missed this. I'm going to try and save face by reviewing this and hoping that because it was a full toss, maybe the path would have taken it past the stumps, and instead the review comes up, and as you can see the path of the ball, he kind of puts his head down and he's kind of covering his head. It's like, oh, I don't want to look at this replay. This is going to get even worse than I imagined it could be. And that turns into the 6th wicket. I said 81 for 6 at the time you were done in the box. It was 81 for 7 because Liam Plunkett goes next ball, dragging a googly onto the stumps. So you were responsible for half the wickets in the Unicorns inning. Aaman, well done.
Funny you say that. Scott Cyrus said it to me and Darren Gunga after our spell too. He was like, 5 wickets on the spell. We got to bring you guys back on at some point. He's like, hold the microphone up, and just play it around like you're walking off. No, it was just a bizarre phase of the game. Even that googly from Mohsin, you almost expect him to bowl it, right? He's just taking a wicket, new batter up, and that's his kind of stock delivery almost. To come off that from the LBW, and that LBW is just so weird, and the reverse sweep just felt weird at that point too in that game, just because I thought it was a moment to kind of stabilize an innings. And in my time at Church Street Park, I've seen top orders kind of collapse pretty quickly, and then I've seen the phase of just having to stick it around, and then also from that point, seen teams leapfrog, right? Maybe they won't go from 7 down to getting themselves to a big score, but they would get themselves into a decent place where they can at least defend a target. This just wasn't the case. I think they just kept trying to hit. They kept trying to score quickly, the way Josh Inglis goes, the way Corey Anderson went. Just kept trying to put the gas on the pedal, when sometimes you could just take it off a little bit and just cruise for the next couple of miles and then maybe come back on later on in the game. Felt like there was just a little bit of lack of awareness, but Corey Anderson said in the post-game that we're going to play fearless cricket. That's our brand. So some days, these days are going to happen. And if they'd come off, we probably would have ended up with 40, 50 extra runs. But we'll take the good with the bad. So this seems to be the mindset the Unicorns are playing with.
They were going at 12 and over through the power play, and then as a consequence of being bowled out for 127, you calculate that, and it's essentially 6 and over, 6.6 and over that they wound up finishing with, if you consider the unused deliveries, 2.1 overs worth that they didn't get to bat because they were bowled out in 17.5 overs. And as Scott Cyrus and others said on air, could have been even worse because the fielding by Texas Super Kings wasn't anything to write home about. And there were probably 13 or 14 wicket-taking opportunities. They converted 10 of them. And that was enough to bowl out the Unicorns, but it could have been even worse if some of the catches had been held on to, looking at the course of the innings. And then in the chase, 3 wickets, I think, is somewhat flattering to the Unicorns because the last of those 3 wickets, 2 of the last 3 wickets fell with the score on 115 and 116, so it was clear at that stage that Super Kings were putting the gas pedal firmly forward to try and increase their net run rate advantage, and meant that Joshua Tromp and Aaron Hardy fell when victory was in sight. So that's how the last 2 wickets felt. and wound up being a 7-wicket win in the end. And the only real blemish, aside from the fielding, for the Super Kings, Devon Conway got hit in the hand by a short ball, had to retire hurt with a score on 92 for 1. Do you have any status update from the post-match for that, Aaman?
Yeah, nothing of note. No one was really wanting to disclose anything too much. I don't think there's a lot of information out there right now, but kind of seeing him walk off, there were moments where you could see kind of anguish on his face, and so you're thinking, okay, is it just the shock of it? But it seemed to be prolonged anguish. So it seems to be that there is something up with the finger. And again, as I hear more, I'll let y'all know. But from what I've heard, I think maybe because of the quick turnaround, he might not be available for the next game. But maybe in that game against, I don't think I'd rule him out for the season. They've already lost Yorkotsia, which is a big deal for them. They've lost him. That's why DJ Bravo came back into the side. And so now if you lose a guy like Devon Conway, who's been the inform top order player, it's a big loss. I know Adam Markram's on the squad. When does he come in? Does he fill that void? There's some options, but this could be a big moment if Devon Conway's unable to return.
A couple of talking points I want to go through with you in the match. First of all, Sanjay Krishnamurthy, 21-year-old, who made his debut in the previous match, but got a thanks for coming. This time, because they were cruising along so well in the power play, when the second wicket went down, Jake Fraser McGurk, 29 for 2 in the third. They were going at better than 12 and over at that stage, or around 10 and over, I should say. Went up to 12 and over by the end of the power play. Sanjay Krishnamurthy came in at number 4, and he got a start, wasn't able to convert it, wound up getting out for 17 off 12 balls, 1-4 and 1-6, and the 6 he hit was mighty impressive. Just very, very risky, using the pace on the ball, and just, I can't even say he uppercut. He just kind of just went like this and flew over third man, Calvin Savage at third man. I couldn't identify the fielder from the television, but you did a wonderful job of that, Calvin Savage, with your commentary stint. And he looked good. One of the things I was impressed about him compared to previous opportunities he's had, whether on the domestic scene or playing for USA, Sanjay Krishnamurthy is somebody who times the ball incredibly well, and yet he often lacks touch. He will blister the ball straight to fielders. He gets so many dot balls in the ring where he's just hammering the ball straight to extra cover, straight to covers, straight to mid-off, straight to backward point. And it's a product of, he's somebody you can clearly tell spends way too much time in the nets and doesn't get enough match practice where he can start to pick and choose gaps and identify where fielders are. And one thing I saw in this limited innings tonight was he was playing with more touch. You can see his time since he's made his debut for USA, and for people who aren't aware, he made his debut for USA as an 18-year-old back in 2021, so he's 21 years old now. He hasn't played for USA in close to 3 years, but he's definitely, from my vantage point anyway, spent some time in the period that he's been out of the USA side to work on some of these things, and that showed tonight. And I'm curious for your thoughts on what your takeaway was from his brief but promising innings.
Yeah, I think it started with ball 1, Peter. Ball 1, he, as you mentioned, blistered it and timed it straight to cover. But I had said on the call, man who's already made his debut, doesn't lack any confidence, whatnot. And he hits the shot, and I kind of hear from the folks around me, like, they were super impressed. Everyone was yelling shot. Like, the timing of that was really terrific. And so, okay, at that point you felt, okay, he's not out of place, right? He belongs. He didn't feel rushed on anything. And then that 4 he hit, the first boundary, that was the touch, as you mentioned. It was he split the gap. There was kind of almost a slip field or maybe a gully, and you had a deep third, and he put the ball straight in that gap and just kind of rushed it on its way to the boundary for 4, and then to touch it over Calvin Savage for 6. There was those moments of touch, and it was good to see. It was impressive to see from Sanjay. He's got a long career ahead of him, and he can do so many things so well. And you see him with the bat. I was impressed. I talked about Josh Tromp's little cameo and stint with the bat. I thought this was equal. Did the same kind of thing for me. It just showed me he's not out of place. It feels like he belongs. he just kind of got rushed on that cut shot he was trying to hit. I think that was maybe a sign of him trying to overhit that ball versus maybe just trying to time that down to third man. Probably would have been better off. But this is a good start for him. I think he's got a long ways to go, but I think it's a great platform, and I like what I saw from Sanjay today.
You talked about it being rushed. To me, that was just lack of experience on his part, and the experience from Dwayne Bravo showed through there. Dwayne Bravo taking 2 wickets in 3 balls. Dwayne Bravo going from Afghanistan coach a couple weeks ago to now taking 2 wickets, 2 for 20 and 3 overs for TSK on this occasion. He also dismissed Josh Inglis prior to getting Sanjay Krishnamurthy out. And that over, again, for somebody who's, you could argue, a part-time cricketer now. He does some coaching for Chennai Super Kings. He does some, obviously, coaching for Afghanistan in the World Cup. And then to come back and do this in his stint tonight, what was the thing that impressed you the most about the way he performed?
It just was a classic DJ Bravo bowling display, really. It was the calmness in which he bowled. It was the ability to understand what the surface needed. He saw some of the strike bowlers go for runs. Zia Huq, while he took wickets, was expensive. He saw Naveen ul Huq get hit for some runs when they were bowling seam-up deliveries, and he said, okay, let's use the surface, let's have a think, and he slowed things down and changed pace and didn't just get bogged down in maybe only bowling the cutters, and he sped one up. I thought it was just, everything was measured and controlled and planned. He had a process which he was following, and it worked for him, and he bowled terrific and set the game up, really. I think his over changed the complexion of it. I think before that, yes, you lost wickets, but you saw mini partnership brewing. Josh Inglis is still there, so you still have one of the top order with Sanjay, who's looking better and better by the ball, and he comes in, takes Josh Inglis, doesn't give up runs, takes Sanjay Krishnamurthy, and sets the game up for Mohammad Mohsin and company to kind of finish the rest up. So I was just impressed by the way he approached it and his ability to just execute everything that he wanted to do.
And then the other guy who really impressed, Mohammad Mohsin, who takes 4 wickets tonight. He took 4 wickets in the opener last year in MLC. I wrote an article at the end of 2023 MLC titled "Looking Back at the Best Values and Biggest Busts of the Draft," and there was no greater value than Mohammad Mohsin. He was taken with the 55th overall draft pick in the wild card round last year. So for those who are wondering, that comes with a $2,500 paycheck. The first round picks get $75,000. The last round draft picks in the wild card round, $2,500. So just a small gap in pay. And yet Mohammad Mohsin took 9 wickets last year for Texas Super Kings, 4 for 8 in the season opener last year, and on this occasion tonight he takes 4 for 13 against the Unicorns. And yes, you could say he may have been a little bit fortunate with the wicket he got of Corey Anderson, but you can't say that necessarily about the other 3 wickets he took. He was very clever, he used his experience, and again, it's just clever scouting by the Super Kings to pick somebody up like him who's been so valuable in the purest definition of the word, Aaman.
Yeah, it was surprising for me to not see him go in the regular rounds of the draft, and then maybe even more surprising to me for Texas to take him because they did draft Zia Shahzad, maybe the other top leg spinner in the country right after Mohsin, sandwiched in between maybe Yasser Mohammed and Mohammad Mohsin. You have Zia Shahzad. So they drafted him in the regular rounds, and then they picked up Mohsin in the supplemental rounds. And speaking of that draft, I thought they had the 2 biggest steals of the draft, one in Mohammad Mohsin, obviously, and then getting Saiteja Mukamala with the last pick of the rookie rounds. Surprised that he didn't go earlier after coming off the 100 he had. But to go to your point, yes, you talk about that first wicket as being very fortunate, a full toss, it was dipping, but that ball should be put away any day of the week. But the next one, the googly, you saw how much it turned to get the inside half of the bat, and go on to stumps. And you can just see the confidence he's built with Faf du Plessis also, right? This is a guy who Faf will just turn to whenever he feels there's a moment to strike. That wicket of Hassan Khan, I think other people would call it a fortunate wicket, right? Short, and Hassan just didn't have enough to get it over the top. Well, that ball was a little bit flatter. It rushed onto Hassan a little bit more versus the loopier stuff he'd been bowling a little bit earlier. So this is a guy who has that T20 knack of switching up the speeds in which he bowls, and that's how he comes across wickets. And I'm super impressed with Mohsin. He's a great person to be around. He's done it in minor league. He's done it with the bat in minor league. He's just continuing to provide value. And, I think he's coming for the top of that wicket column this year. We see so many domestics up there, with Sarab and, in company, Ali Khan. But now you're seeing the spinners get involved. Mohammad Mohsin getting in there. So I'm always super impressed with Mohsin. I was impressed by his ability to change speeds, to change lengths, and to change how much he flights the ball. Also, I just love what he brings to the game.
Bear with me here.
Morrisville, this beautiful town, and the best pitch on the East Coast.
There you go. How cool is it to have season 2 of Major League back here?
I am so excited to have Major League Cricket back here. We have people who played in the World Cup here in Morrisville, and the crowd loves it. You see they're all crowded around here. They want to talk to all the players, and the players are really friendly and engaging, and we're so happy to have them all here in Morrisville.
Hey, do you have a favorite team or favorite fan base? You've been a part of 2 seasons now. Is there anything that sticks out to you?
I really like the Washington Freedom. I lived there for a while. I met a lot of great people from there up in the box, and they seem to have a lot of great energy, so that's who I'm rooting for, but I love all the teams that come here to Morrisville.
It's always great to talk to TJ, Peter, and what he did after the game. He went around to every fan, said thanks for coming, and he's always so warm and happy to see cricket there. So cool to see him. He's been in, I think, every game that I've been to. I think I've seen him at every game. So cool to see him and the Morrisville community growing strong.
All right, and now we're going to take a look at the points table after a week of action in MLC 2024. And with today's victory, the Texas Super Kings go to the top of the table. They've played 3 matches, joint most with LA Knight Riders, and it's the Super Kings who have 3 points. They've got one of everything. They've had a win, a loss, and a no result. So they get 2 points for the win today, 1 for a no result, which came in the match against Washington Freedom, who also have 3 points but are way behind Super Kings on net run rate, which is going to be an important tiebreaker when the regular season phase comes to a conclusion, although the Freedom have a match in hand, so they can gain some ground on Super Kings when they get into action once again. MI New York, LA Knight Riders, San Francisco Unicorns, and Seattle Orcas are all joint level, tied for third with 2 points apiece, but in that order is how they stand on net run rate. MI New York with the best net run rate after the walloping they gave Seattle Orcas on opening night. And on the flip side, Seattle Orcas, as a consequence of being on the receiving end of that lopsided result, they are the most negative in terms of net run rate, so that's why they are technically in last place, but that can all change in quick time. So a reminder for fans who are joining for this season, one of the changes in format this year was that in season 1 the teams played single round robin format, so there were only 5 matches in the regular season phase. This year, Aaman, they've got 7 matches, so they'll play everybody at least once, and then they've, technically speaking, split the 6 teams into 2 conferences, if you will.
Sure.
So that you'll play a second match against 2 teams that are in your conference. What are your thoughts on how that may impact things, especially in the context of the way the conferences were divided so that certain matchups are guaranteed to happen, which may be of particular fan interest in MLC 2024, Aaman?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that in cricket, Peter. There's always those little draws that are made to make sure certain things happen. But there's pros and cons to both sides of that story. I think it becomes interesting because a lot of times it's just whoever gets the better of the one team on a given day. But we saw with the finals last year, we saw the Orcas have that rematch against MI New York in the first game. It was the Orcas who got the better of MI New York. And the second one, New York was able to adjust, and they got the better of the Seattle Orcas. So I think you get an opportunity for teams to reevaluate before playoff time, which is always cool. I think for us also, it gives us an opportunity to see how do teams adjust, right? If you're one of these sides that are going to play each other, how are you going to deal with one of these sides who beat you, right? Like how are you going to deal with the top three of a Washington after you've seen them once? All right, how do I go and play them now? How do I deal with the MI New York bowling attack once I've already seen it? What do I have to do? What are the adjustments I make? Do I change things in my 11? Do I change the approach? And teams are always so good at finding this information out. So I'm intrigued to just those little matchups and those battles that we'll see.
And for those who don't quite get the illusion I'm referencing, the way the conferences are split up, there's basically an East and West conference. So all the West Coast teams, you've got Seattle Orcas, San Francisco Unicorns, and LA Knight Riders. They'll all play each other twice, and it means that on the other half of the draw, you're guaranteed to have MI New York and Texas Super Kings play each other twice. So for all of the Super Kings and MI fans out there who love seeing those teams clash, whether it's in the IPL or the equivalent in the SA20 or here in Major League Cricket, you're going to get to see that happen. And of course, the other team in that half of the group is Washington Freedom, who just might spoil the party by the end of the league phase. They've had some quality reinforcements come into their side this year who've already made an impact, and arguably they could have 2 wins if they had only been able to get 6 more illegal deliveries in a couple days ago in Morrisville. It just didn't quite happen, but you never know how things will unfold over the course of the rest of the season. And coming up on U.S. Cricket Daily, we are going to bring you a bumper episode on Monday, July 15th, where we cover all the weekend's action. We're not going to be recording on the day, on Saturday and Sunday, when there's going to be a lot of action unfolding over the course of the weekend. But come Monday, we'll recap all the action that takes place between that Classico, that MI New York, Texas Super Kings showdown, as well as LA Knight Riders versus San Francisco Unicorn. But tomorrow, as we mentioned at the top, we've got a very special guest, somebody who's known to American audiences for his roles as a judge on NBC's America's Got Talent. He was also the very first winner of the Celebrity Apprentice, and he also hosted his own show on CNN for a number of years, following after Larry King taking up the primetime slot on CNN. For those who don't know, he's also a very, very, very passionate cricket fan. He currently hosts Piers Morgan Uncensored, so no surprises for guessing who it is. Piers Morgan, the one and only Piers Morgan, is going to come on the show, and he has plenty of interesting things to say about cricket, just as he does with everything else that Piers Morgan does. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. It's going to be a very entertaining interview of Piers Morgan.
And if you enjoyed that, you can hear the full interview tomorrow, right here on U.S. Cricket Daily.
And a reminder, if you want to give any feedback about Piers and what he has to say or anything else to do with the show, you can email us at hello@uscricketdaily.com. Now, we've got some feedback for some of the most recent content we produced. Fritz Klug emails in, "Hey guys, I just wanted to send you an email thanking you for your podcast. I started watching cricket around 2021 when I had a bad case of COVID and watched a couple of matches. I loved it, but drifted away. However, I started watching again during the most recent T20 World Cup, co-hosted by USA and West Indies. I had 2 weeks off from work for my wedding and honeymoon, and I was able to watch matches during the downtime and got to follow the matches and get a feel of the series. I was surprised to find during the World Cup final that there's major cricket coverage in the United States, and it was starting in just a couple of days. And I still had my Willow TV subscription. I've been watching MLC, and I'm enjoying it so much so that I haven't watched baseball in about a month. All the things I love about baseball, longer games, pitching and hitting duels, and the general openness of what can happen in a game are much more pronounced in the cricket that I've watched. I'm hooked! Your daily podcast has been a fantastic resource. I love that I can watch a match, follow along, and then listen to your thoughts and analysis the next morning and get previews for the next game. This is exactly what I was looking for at this point of my fandom. If you have any recommendations for books, podcasts, or videos for someone transitioning from baseball to cricket, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for all you do. Looking forward to following along for the rest of the series of your show." Well, thank you, Fritz. I do have one book I can recommend. If I can find it here somewhere. There is a copy of... Oh, here it is. Inside the Select Room. A Quest for T20 Cricket Stardom by a guy named Peter Della Penna. You can get it on Amazon. It's all about Ali Khan and a number of other guys in their journey to making it franchise cricket. And Ali Khan highly recommends it, and he's not the only one. So go on Amazon. If you're looking for book content, for people who still read books, go buy a copy. I think you'll enjoy it. We've got one more piece of feedback. Francesca from the UK says, Dear Peter and Aaman, I just wanted to send you a quick email to say that I'm loving your podcast. To be honest, before the T20 World Cup, I didn't know anything about cricket in the US, but now I'm keen to learn more. Your analysis of the games and passion for the sport is reminding me why I started to love watching cricket during the 2005 Ashes. Francesca, that's how I got into cricket, the 2005 Ashes. It's a series that changed many lives. We've got something in common. I love it. I look forward to listening to all the upcoming episodes. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Francesca. I'm curious. Do you have a seminal cricket series that got you hooked on the game growing up?
A seminal cricket series. I like a lot of it was domestic. I honestly, and this is gonna sound very cheesy and corny, but probably it was in 2018 that so obviously I was a fan of cricket, but U.S. cricket was just kind of just still out there for me. And then 2018. The USA came to Church Street Park in Mooresville, North Carolina, and Stephen Taylor hits 22 off the last over to beat Canada in a T20 qualifiers match. And I think from that moment on, the city of Mooresville was hooked, and me and my friends that played youth cricket in the area were probably like, holy smokes, this is cricket in the U.S. So for U.S. cricket, I think that was probably the seminal moment for me. Internationally, I couldn't tell you a specific moment. I think there's always little series. I think 2011 World Cup is probably a popular one for people my age and from my part of the world. But that 2018 USA Canada game where Stephen Taylor chased down 22 off the heels of a hurricane before that whole series happened was probably the biggest moment for me.
Hurricane Francis, of course, remember it well. There was concerns of whether or not that America's qualifier was even going to be played, and Church Street Park took all the water and rain that Hurricane Francis had to throw and soaked it up, and not a single ball was missed, not an over was reduced. It was a tremendous occasion. I tell you what else I'm smiling about thinking about that. I'm on 22 and an over. Stephen Taylor off of Junaid Siddiqui.
Mm-hmm.
Looks tame these days because we saw Jeremy Gordon give up almost twice that many runs when Aaron Jones was running wild to the crease along with Andres Krause in the opening night of the World Cup. So 22, that's like small potatoes nowadays in the terms of the USA-Canada rivalry.
Yeah, if you're looking at purely a scorecard, yeah, it doesn't seem like that much anymore, but man, and you think about that series too, who was the Canadian captain of that series? It was Nitish Kumar, one of the heroes for USA in this World Cup. So it's kind of there's a lot of cool parallels to draw from that game and from that kind of whole environment. But it was an opportunity for a lot of us young kids to kind of get involved. We were all volunteers, dragging the super soakers around and clearing up water. And I can still tell you exactly where I was. I was at the left side of the. If you're looking at the field, I was on the right side of the side screen at the Shiloh Grove end, so the far end, closest to the traffic light, if you've ever been to Church Street Park. And as soon as he hits it, me and my boys ran to the right, or to the left if you're looking straight on. So we ran the whole length of the field, the whole diameter, the whole circumference, whatever you want to call it, the whole round of the field, screaming our heads off, going crazy. Half of us probably did our first and last Instagram live ever. It was a fun moment.
So you hear that, folks? In just the space of 6 short years, Aaman Patel has gone from storming the fields, possibly illegally, to getting full pitch side access as being a member of the broadcast crew, and now being co-host of U.S. Cricket Daily. So it's amazing the places people can go.
It's a true American story, I guess.
Well, there you have it. That'll do it for this episode of U.S. Cricket Daily. And just a reminder, tomorrow you can catch our interview with Piers Morgan. And next week, we'll be joined by an all-time cricket great, one of the best to ever play for England, KP, Kevin Pietersen, will be on the podcast. And we'll also have a chat with James Coyne from the Cricketer magazine. James was in the U.S. throughout the World Cup, covering events in Texas and New York. and he's obviously got an eye on MLC as well, so we'll be curious to hear James Coyne's thoughts on what he thought of everything going on in America, from the T20 World Cup to what's going on in MLC. So stay tuned for that as well. And on behalf of Aaman Patel, I'm Peter Della Penna. Thanks again for joining us on U.S. Cricket Daily. See you next time.